Alright, welcome to an episode of Yoda's Hut. My name's Kiramode, not Yoda Man. The reason I'm doing the narration on this one is I recorded this match between myself and Jarratt for the finals. Jarratt has to win 2 games in a row. I have to win 1. But my recorder's suspect. You can't quite get all the audio. It's only one-sided. And it's kind of blurry as well, not to mention the sizing of the frames isn't optimal. So given that this is still pretty fresh in my memory, I can give a pretty good idea of what's going on, what's going through my head, and then also me and Jarratt got to talk a little bit after our games, so that way I can say, okay, what's going on in his head a little bit when he's making his decisions. In any case, the decks that we're playing here, Jarratt is on a 7-card Scum deck, and myself, I am on a 7-card Jedi deck. The list, we're going to go ahead and post the list in the description below, so that way people can see, exactly what we're running. But the basis is I'm running a Leia plus Ewoks plus Kraken deck, and he's running a like Gladiators plus Chimera plus like Decimators, and then he also has the Racing Swoops for his Scum side. So we're just kind of shuffling up here, seeing what's going on. Again, I'm on the winners bracket, so if I win this game, I'm good. And Jarratt, if he wins this game, he can roll out with his light side deck. And then I'm gonna be able to give you a really good idea of what I'm thinking, just because I can explain myself. Jarratt, it's gonna be sort of pieced together. Now I remember for this game I had the nuts with what I drew against character decks. Against vehicle decks, not so much. So it is going to impact how I play a lot, because I drew a Funeral Pyre plus a Leia turn 1, which enables you to use Leia basically as a resource, especially if you have another resource, right? Like you play a resource, you play Leia, you play Funeral Pyre, you sack Leia, and then that opens up 3 resources for you. So you effectively get to spend, let me see here, 5 plus 2, you effectively get to spend about 7 resources turn 1 if you can rip off that combo. So I had the pieces in play, it just didn't quite work out. Now in any case, Jarratt's objectives, he got 2 copies of Narshada Drift and 1 copy of Endor Entrapment. Myself, I got May the Force, I got Hero's Beginning, and I have Planning the Rescue. So I'm always triggering both of those. I always trigger Hero's Beginning first, just because what you have underneath Hero's Beginning could impact how you want to place the cards underneath Kraken's objective. So the 3 cards I have Rex, I have the Leia Enhancement, and I have a Nudge. So the only time that I really ever separate those 3 cards would be if I really, really want to rescue the other card, or the other card itself is like a Kraken or a Leia. Rex, he's good. Like, I don't mind rescuing him out, but that's not a priority. So I shove all 3 under the bottom objective. I represent them under my own bottom objective to show that they're underneath Endor Entrapment. Which objective you place the captured cards under, that's player's choice. I just chose the one that's different from the other objectives. So Jarratt's turn starts out here. He discards Bailout because that's like an auto discard turn 1 every single time. And he has to decide what to play. The good news is he can play Chuds here and commit them, because his board's going to be really hard to lock down because he has 2 refreshes every single turn. So you can't really single out one guy. Like, you're going to have to lock down a lot of dudes in order to be able to lock out an entire board. Whereas normally, I know the way my deck plays, because I have so many tactics, I want to lock out people's boards a lot. So he presents a pretty interesting challenge. He did have a little bit of insider info, because he knew sort of what my deck did, and he most importantly knew Funeral Pyre was in it. So he knew better, and he's like, okay, I'm just going to play vehicles and make sure that I'm not going to lose because I played a Vader or a Palpatine, and then he Funeral Pyre's my guy, and then I'm just sad. So he plays a Racing Swoop, he plays a Decimator, and just passes over. And now it's on to me. And I had the nuts, right? I had the 2 resources plus the Funeral Pyre, but I unfortunately can't play the second resource anymore because he doesn't have a character. So if he doesn't have a character for me to use Funeral Pyre to sacrifice, I basically have to choose between the second resource and the Funeral Pyre, because I had a Yoda, right? So I was going to go like resource plus Pyre plus Leia, sack Leia, play Yoda plus another resource, and then probably something else. But that's kind of taken off the table. I really want to get my draw engines going, and I really want to get my funeral pyre. So I'm kind of okay sacrificing a little bit of my onboard presence, and I just choose to not play Yoda here and go with other stuff. So I play Rex's Enhancement. Rex's Enhancement, the way it works is it's a 2-for-1 limited resource that you can focus to draw a card from it. And then I also played Funeral Pyre. At this time, I didn't realize that his deck had basically no characters whatsoever. Like, I figured he had some sort of characters, like he's playing Scum, so maybe he has a Dengar, maybe he has a Caesar. You know, I just figured, or maybe even as a resource, right? Like, even if he chooses not to play Caesar, he's still going to play a deck collector. That turned out to be a mistake on my part. I think if I could go back, I probably just don't play the Funeral Pyre there and just play a resource. But that would require me having knowledge about Jarratt's deck that I didn't have at the time. And then also, this deck that I'm playing wants to attack every single turn, and I had a monstrous edge hand. The problem is he has a Decimator, so he's always going to get the strike first, so I kind of have to just awkwardly commit Leia and then just wait. You know, there's not really much else he can do as much as I wanted to, because also I think if I had like a rescue mission, then you can make a pretty good case for like you attack, let him kill Leia, rescue out someone, or maybe if I had a Yoda, you seek Yoda. You let him kill Leia, you draw your card with Rex's Enhancement, and then you just seek a Yoda and then attack and then May the Force. But I didn't have that stuff, so you're kind of just sad panda waiting there. And really smart on his end, he has the Imperial Blockade. So Blockade, I have answers for it, right? Like I can use an Undercover to stop it. I can use like other cheap enhanced events like the Ewok events, but they're pretty tough, and you want to trigger them during your opponent's turn. So realistically, that's going to be blocking a good deal of the stuff I want to do. And then he also plays the money. Like Black Market Exchange doesn't really do anything right now, but later on it could. He just has to get a couple enhancements, and more importantly, he needs to get enhancements on guys that matter. So Black Market Exchange, it's a weird card because you have to give up your own guys in order to be able to get any sort of value out of it. But particularly if you get it on a high blast guy, late game, it can just auto win you a game because you have like 2 Black Market Exchanges. You just double swing with like a Chimera or something, and that just ends the game. Or it can oftentimes free up a defender. It's just a very versatile card that as long as you have a board, it allows you to do stuff. Now, he chose to swing in here. This here, super suspect move. I later found out that Jarratt's thinking here was he thought that he could use Black Market Exchange to free up one of his guys, and he forgot you need an enhancement on them to do so. It doesn't really punish him too much, but it's just one of those things where you got to remember to read your cards. You know, everyone makes mistakes, but mistakes like these could potentially be costly, right? It depends on whether I have the ability to sacrifice Leia, and so I'm blocking every time here. And not only am I blocking, I'm winning edge every single time. Like, there's no way he can beat me on edge because I have 4 cards in hand plus 3 under Owen's objective. So I go into edge and I just throw away some cards. I throw away a Leia Chud and I throw away a Friendship is Magic. The Friendship is Magic, you could talk me into keeping it because I'm going to have a pretty wide open board, but I'm just looking to cycle through my deck. I'm looking to find all the pieces to various combos that are within the deck, and I don't really care about an extra damage here or there. Now, there is a really good case to be made here that when Leia strikes, you damage the Decimator and then focus the Decimator. Because if you focus the swoop, then you just lose Leia, and the ability to have like a monstrous resource turn or a monstrous attacking turn gets off the table. But I've seen enough cards here. Like, I've seen a Chimera card, I've seen Decimator cards, I've seen Gladiator cards, I've seen Swoop cards, and I've seen a Boba Fett card, which Boba Fett's probably only going to be used as an enhancement, to think he ain't going to have any characters. So my chances to use Funeral Pyre to sack Leia at the right time are highly unlikely. And I just decided, you know what, let me tap down the Swoop, and let me just try to get my card draw right now to Rex's Enhancement while I can get a free draw, and see if I can draw into a lot of blasts. Like, maybe if I draw into a Kraken here, he's just toast because there's already 3 cards captured underneath the bottom. So, and I'm keeping Force. So I deal a damage to the bottom, I top deck a Kraken, that objective blows up. If I draw into a Rex, that objective also blows up. If I draw into a Land Speeder, then I can get some pretty good damage that way. Or even if I just draw into some Chuds of Blast. Like, there's a lot of ways that this turn just ends up being completely disastrous for Jarratt if I draw the right stuff here, because he forgot how his cards work exactly. In any case, though, I don't draw any of that stuff, so he kind of dodges a bullet there. On the other hand, though, it did take Leia off the table, so if he just doesn't attack, then I have Leia, and then that makes combat math really difficult for him. So it kind of works out to his favor, the way that this plays out. But it is one of those, like, right moves but bad decision type of thing that happens. In any case, though, I do remember I start getting my draw engines going. So I get a nudge out there to always threaten the Funeral Pyre. So if he has any characters, he's not going to play him for sure now. I drop a Moisture Vaporator. And then, let me see. I'm pretty sure I get another one. Yeah, that's right. So I get 2 Vaporators. So now all of the draws are here. I'm a little bit ahead of schedule on my draws. Like, I missed some, like, early, like, Ewok drop shenanigans, and I missed, like, You're My Only Hopes, but you make up for it if you just get the if you get the Moisture Vaporator, and you get the what's it called, the Hidden Catch. So we both drew 2 cards, but the cards he's drawing don't really matter. He has no guys, so he can't use them for edge. It sort of helps his hand cycling a little bit. Like, if he top decks a really bad card, it might become an auto discard, but you know, it's not nearly as helpful for him as it is for me. Like, me getting these cards enables me to do a lot of things. And so I drop an Ewok, that gets more card draw. And then that Ewok, I remember it top decked the Leia enhancement, which the Leia enhancement I almost never play. It's just, you almost never have the resource for it. But in this case, I knew I wasn't going to have my big monstrous damage turn, so I figured let's get the card draw engines going. So I played that on his bottom objective because it's his only gray resource. And that objective I'm only really ever going to try to blow up if I get Kraken. So I'm going to aim for the objectives that actually refresh his guys. And I send the Ewok to try to go overlock someone. I tossed away a Funeral Pyre and 2 Seeds. Those are just throwaway cards. Like, in this deck, you have to cycle constantly. So you can't hold on to a Seeds forever. I did hold on to a Yoda in my hand. That's a little bit different, though, because I need that for board presence just to be able to buy myself extra turns by holding the Force. That's a little bit more of a passable move, but you can make a really good case that I should have dumped Yoda there as well. In any case, so I only get a damage. I forget that he has the objectives to refresh all of his guys, so his whole board gets cleared. I think you attack with the Ewok in all cases there anyways, but I was thinking, oh, I'm going to get, like, this Decimator out of the way, and it turns out, nah, you're not getting anybody out of the way because, you know, all his dudes are going to refresh. And then he plays Cutoff. That's questionable. So playing Cutoff during his refresh, it allows him to get my nudge out of the way, because the nudge is who I committed to the Force to be able to, you know, keep pressure on that. So he's going to keep the Force. The problem is it costs him a resource, and it takes him from 5 resources down to 4. So if he draws into a Chimera, he can't play Chimera anymore. And it also just doesn't enable him to play like a 3 and a 2. So he can't play both a Gladiator plus a Decimator. Like, he can only play 1 Gladiator, or he could play like an Interdictor. So if he has like specifically a 4-drop, he's good, but his deck doesn't have a ton of 4-drops. So, I don't know. I don't know if Force is that important. Like, I think if you just have a 2-pip card, considering that I just threw away 2 Seeds, you just play your 2-pipper and then take the Force. You know, like, you commit them, and now you have 3 to my 2, and you deal with the rest later. But, I don't know. It's like one of those 50-50 calls that you can go either way on. And I didn't know Jarratt's hand exactly, so I don't know if he had a 2-drop that he now couldn't play because he played Cutoff. That much I don't know, but I probably just don't play the Cutoff there. Now, he forgot that he needs to pay a gray resource here, because he didn't want to give me a free draw off of the Leia enhancement, because he is aware that my deck wants to cycle the most amount of cards it possibly can. So he's trying to prevent me from getting a draw and getting closer to stuff that I want, but he has no choice. So he has to focus a gray resource. I draw my card. I forget how many cards I'm at, because I know I discarded a bunch of stuff, and like I played a bunch of stuff, but I also drew a bunch. So I don't remember how much I have in hand, but it doesn't matter. Like, I don't have any dudes. He just has to decide if he wants to throw one of his dudes at my objectives to just, pump some damage out there. He can overlock the Ewok, but that doesn't really do anything, just because it's an Ewok. It has no blast. It only has a gun for combat purposes, so it's not something that you should be overly afraid of. It is still another dude, though. It's someone that you don't really want to see coming back at you the other way. But as far as I remember, I think he just stands pat and decides, okay, you know what, I'm gonna sit on what I got here for the most part. I don't think he attacks, as best I can remember. Psych, just kidding. Okay, no, yeah, okay. No, he did attack. So I remember now, he sends the Decimator to just go lay 2 damage. And as far as I can remember, he does it on Hero's Beginning. And I think the reason he's doing this is he knows the type of deck I'm on, and he knows how important hand advantage is to this type of deck. So if you can get rid of the 3 cards that are underneath a Hero's Beginning, that's really helpful, because I'm not going to blow those cards early. Like, that's not going to be something where it's like, okay, well, I'll just blow them all off in the first turn or two. It's going to be the cards that I'm only going to use in the most critical situations, which is how everybody should be playing a Hero's Beginning typically. Like, they should be used more as threats. They should be used as cards to make your opponent go, crap, I can't defend now, because he has 3 extra cards, and those 3 extra cards are the difference between me winning an edge battle and me losing an edge battle. So he lays a couple damage in there. So that objective's almost certainly going away next turn, because it's unlikely I'm going to have a viable defense to protect it. And so he could just send one more chump attack next turn. You get rid of it, and then it's a little bit more of a fair fight in terms of cards, because Leia's card doesn't really affect my edge battles offensively, and the card from Rex's enhancement, I have to pay a resource for it, and the cards from Owen, we both draw. So there is a little bit of a method to the madness as to why he'd do that. So I play both an Ewok and I play a Kraken Shud. So I slide the Leia from the middle objective down to the bottom objective. So now that objective is fully loaded for Kraken. If Kraken goes in there and he pops it, I'm either getting a Leia to refresh my board, or I'm going to get a Rex and get a monstrous body on the table. On top of that, I've cycled 2 cards from my hand, and I also played Owen into Yoda. So my board just went from like pretty bad to like actually really good, because now I have 3 tactics out there. I have 2 blast, I have some guns, and I have the ability to take the force. And Jarratt's board is like, it went from being looking okay to just looking pretty sad, because if I attack here, it's really hard for him to defend. Like it's really hard if Yoda swings in with pretty much any of these scrubs. There's not much you can do, right? Like, you're not going to be able to kill really anything, because you only have 2 guns. And you can stop the bleeding if you win edge, but if you lose edge, you probably just lose your board and probably just lose the game if that happens. And this is why you want Owen's objective off the table, because while I am drawing the cards, it costs me cards to draw the cards, right? Like, I play the Ewok, so it draws me a card, but I also lost a card, so it just keeps me at even. So when we go into this edge battle, I have 6 cards, and I believe he also has 6, as best I can remember. So we're both at 6 cards when we go into this edge battle. And I think with the Gladiator, you should feel pretty good. But a gladiator's not better than 3 cards under Owen's objective. So I think the only way you can really justify a block here is if you know that your edge hand is not just better than mine, but it's dramatically better than mine. Because you have to believe that the 3 extra cards I have just don't matter. And I haven't used Owen's enhancements yet. That's something that I typically wait on, right? I want to see him not block and then draw. But he actually does something which throws me off a little bit in that he chose to block with both. So he's signaling to me that he has a really good edge hand. You know, because that's the only way you could block here. Because it's not like you don't lose a game on this attack. You know, like if I go in and I blow up the objective, I'm locking out nothing of his board, right? Like his whole board still gets to refresh. And he loses an objective, but he keeps all of his guys. So he's only blocking here with the top end of his edge hand range, and that changes how I go about it. I didn't think there was any twist cards in his deck. Like I couldn't figure out any way that he would have a twist because he has the swoops and he has Boba, so he has room for like one more green pod. I just don't know what it is yet, and so I just figured it was Caesar. But if it's Caesar, he doesn't have any green dudes to take advantage of it. So we start dropping cards. My edge hand is absolute garbage. I have, I think, like 3 1-pippers and like a 0-pipper or 2, but I do have the twist. So the only way I'm realistically winning edge here is if I can get him to throw in 4 to 6 cards and then bank on the cards that I have under Owen's objective, which I have a Leia, a Rescue Mission, and an Ewok Hunter. Like bank on those extra 6 pips to just push me through. And then hope he doesn't, like, because also if he has a twist, he could totally hose me here. Because he could, if he smells that I have a twist, he could just throw away all his garbage cards, burn my twist, and play his twist on the second engagement, and then all of a sudden we're both out of cards. So, like, I kind of considered that could happen, but you just have to sort of hedge against it. At some point, though, we both end up throwing, I think, 6 cards in edge here. So once we throw 6 cards, I'm pretty sure not only does he not have the twist, like for the second edge battle, he's not going to even have it for the first one. I can't envision him actually burning 6 cards here, because normally if you have a twist with a gladiator, you pass super early because you can always threaten to put an extra card. So like once he put like his 4th card in, then I kind of knew it was over, because I knew he didn't have the twist and I knew he's going to have to keep throwing stuff in. And so he flip over, I have like a bunch of trash, and he actually has like some decent cards. Like he had a couple 2-pippers. Like they weren't all great cards that he had, but all of his cards had more value than my cards had. So now we reset our edge hands. He's down to 3 cards in hand, and with only 3 cards, I know his range caps out at 10 pips, which is relevant for me because I have 6 pips underneath Owen's objective, and then I know I had an Ewok in my hand, and I had like a couple other sort of wimpier cards just sort of hanging around that I could use in this edge battle. And so he throws 1 card in. I'm up to 3 cards. So like I put 1, he put 1, I put 2, he passed. Then I put 3, and then he throws his 2nd card in. So once he throws his 2nd card in, he's effectively all in. And I'm at 3 cards. I've put in 2 cards from Owen's objective, and I had, and then I'm trying to remember what I had. Like I knew I threw the Rescue Mission and the Leia from Owen's objective already. I threw in 1 card from my hand, and then I had 1 card left. I had an Ewok in my hand and an Ewok under Owen's objective. And I didn't know what was more valuable, the card cycle from the Ewok in my hand or the card threat from having 1 card under Owen's objective. And I had 8 pips in there, and I knew he topped out at 10 pips. So like I could go all in and be almost certain to win, but I didn't want to burn every single card I had on the slight off chance he had a twist or something. So I just figured, you know what, I'm just going to throw the 1 Ewok, kind of split the difference a little bit here. And so he flips over only 5 pips. 5 pips total. So when he flips over a small amount, he can't use his ability to win edge. So I win edge, and then this is where the game just kind of takes a really bad turn, because not only do I win edge, I also had a Friendship is Magic inside of my edge stack. So that gives Yoda an extra gun. So now Yoda's up to 3 guns. So Yoda at 2 guns, if I swing at the gladiator, he can at the very least save it. or at least potentially save it with End Entrapment, because like if he has like a 2-pip card in hand, he could prevent 2 of the damage. Then my other chumps would have to be able to, like, they'd have to both swing in on the Gladiator to finish him off. But now with this, it's like there's not really anything you can do, because you might save the Gladiator for a hit if you have a 2-pipper, but I'm still going to kill it, and I'm still going to get a little bit of pain in on the other guy. Plus also I get an extra blast too, so that's no fun either. It just gets sad. Like Jarratt, I remember he sat there and he thought about it for a little bit on whether or not he's going to try to save his Gladiator, and then ultimately opted not to. It wasn't worth his time to save a card that he knew was gone. And then the objective's gone anyways, because also like preventing unopposed might have been a good reason to block that attack, right? Like you save the province the objective if you block unopposed, but me having that extra blast also means that I don't care if I get unopposed. The objective's gone either way. The swoop being double tap doesn't really help your board state all that much, so he kind of had to just let it go, and it was like sad times. And then also losing the objective is bad too, because now he only has 1 refresh, and I had an extra Ewok hanging out back, so like that Ewok's able to go in and actually lock out his Decimator, so now he has no board. You know, he's just in a tough spot. Like the only way that he comes out of this is he needs some sort of way to not only contain my board, because I'm going to get the blast eventually, he also needs to rebuild his own board. And he has at most 6 resources to do it with. Now, some of my most explosive plays are blocked by the customs blockade. So there's some saving grace there. It's not like all hope is lost, but this is one of those moments where a lot of games are decided by turn 2. You know, it's kind of unfortunate that this happens, and it's not just a Star Wars thing. It happens in a lot of games, but it happens a lot in Star Wars, where if there's a really critical attack and losing guys can cause you to just lose the game, you sometimes just have to let it go. Now, in Jarratt's defense, he actually did have a really good edge hand, and he was probably, what was likely going through his head was, if he doesn't have a twist, I can win this edge battle, and if he does have a twist, I might win the edge battle. And he needed me to not have a situation where I have both a twist and also have some like higher pip cards as backup to win the edge battle. And he just kind of ran into a bad situation there. I personally would have just not blocked there, because I don't like taking chances like that. Like I don't like the idea that my opponent, who has a 3-card advantage on me, if they just have good cards, I just lose. Whereas if he just lets it go, he might be hurting for a little bit, but his board recovers. Whereas now it's going to take a little bit longer for his board to recover, because he's at 0. He lets it go. I probably lock out his Gladiator in all likelihood, but he'd still have his Decimator, and he'd still have his swoop. And the Decimator really changes how I have to play with this deck, just because of what he does to Leia and potentially getting a ion cannon on him. That card's actually caused more troubles to my deck than I thought a dopey card like that would. I don't know if that was his intention. I think he just wanted to have the ion cannon, so that way he could put an ion cannon on Chimera and then use the black market exchange to untap it. But it was a clever way to go nonetheless. So he goes with the Sandcrawler here, which Sandcrawler is exactly what the doctor ordered, because he's in really deep shit here. You know, he has 2 damage on the top objective and 1 damage on the bottom. And this comes back to, if I draw either Kraken or Rex, that might just be game over, right? I draw either one of those 2 cards, he's dead to the board, because I could use a combination of Ewoks and edge cards to go to the middle, get his defenders out of the way. Rex/Kraken blows up the bottom, and then Yoda plus the Kraken Chud, the Infiltrator, they go blow up the top. So if let's say instead of the Sandcrawler, he played just like a Chimera there, or he played another Gladiator or something else, something that can't deal with everything, he's just toast. Like there's very little ways that he could stay alive, whereas now he has almost a guaranteed way to stay alive because he can use the black market exchange to sack off his own Sandcrawler to untap his Decimator. And the Decimator being tapped actually helps him because you can only trigger that card if your target of the card has at least one focus token on it. So here's the Kraken. All right, so that would otherwise just be game over, but he has a way to stall for a turn, and that's really what you want if you're in his spot. If you can just stall for a little bit, like just a little bit of time, you can reset your board. And like Darkside has the ability to build boards really pretty quickly because they just generally have better cards than Lightside. So it wouldn't take much for him to reestablish his position if he can stall. Like if let's say next turn he got like another Sandcrawler and then played like some other chud or whatever, then he might be able to creep back into this and put himself in a much better position to win, despite the fact that the block he made turn 2 would have otherwise been crippling. So anyways, on my end of the board, I end up drawing a bunch of stuff, right? Like I know his Sandcrawler is going to block my whole board, so I double Vaporator, I play the Rex Chuds because they can untap my draw effects, and I play a Kraken. And then I also drop an Owen. You know, Owen's just there because I want to turn off his cancel. So at the time I had 2 unfinished business in hands, and I needed a way to mess his stuff up. Oh yeah, I also discarded an Owen earlier in the previous Edge battle, so I know I had a target for unfinished business to come up, and I had no resources. So I knew at some point I was going to sacrifice Owen to trigger unfinished business just to turn off his cancel, but I needed to wait until his turn so that way it wouldn't pull a token off and I'd buy myself more time to be able to rip off a big combo later, barring him getting another copy of Customs Blockade. So I asked him if he wants to trigger Sandcrawler early. He actually chose not to, which surprised me. Like he allowed me to swing in with the Battlefield Engineers to pull a token off something, which allowed me to draw another card, and then I can use that card to throw away an edge and then keep getting closer to my good stuff that's buried underneath. And I'm like slowly building a monstrous hand because at this point I'm pretty sure, so I'm sitting on 2 unfinished business, but I also have I have a Rex sitting in there. And then I think I had, what else did I have? I know I had like one more blue chip card that I was sitting on, and I just for some reason chose not to discard it, which was probably a mistake. But yeah, I mean, the blocking with the Sandcrawler here, what it does allow him to do is it allows him to kill one of my dudes before he gets rid of his own Sandcrawler, because I opted not to swing in with like heavy hitters. I opted to just swing small and, you know, get a small trigger because I didn't want to have a situation where like I swung in with Kraken and like he has like a heat or something and just kills my Precious right out of the gate. In any case, for Edge though, I remember my hand was abnormally good. Like, it's really rare that I ever want to keep cards with this deck, but we're entering the end stages of the game where I'm just trying to craft a really, really good hand. So I only pitched 2 cards, and the 2 cards I pitched were just cards that were garbage that had no use for me in the moment. And I think one of them was what's it called? The Ewok event that lets you move a token from one guy to another. And as much as I wanted to keep that card, I just knew it wouldn't be useful in this matchup because, you know, if he Sandcrawler bombs, I can't use that event. And then also, I need edge cards. Like, edge cards are going to be what's going to push me to win the game. So there's no point in really keeping it in my hand. And that's sort of how I always think about it. Like, if the card doesn't help me right now, it's gone. And so Sandcrawler kills an Ewok. I get to draw a card. I put a damage on him that doesn't really matter. And that's when he opts not to kill himself here, which again surprised me. Like, he let Kraken make an attack, and then at that point I'm forcing his hand. So he taps down everything, and then he's able to actually send the Decimator in to block, which does a couple things. It prevents unopposed, so he's not taking more damage, but it also makes it so Kraken will have damage on him. So in a situation where like I swing in with him, there's a lot of cards that he can now use to block him with that would be in range to actually kill him, should that sort of situation come up. Like one thing I can reasonably think of is if he has like a Decimator block, and let's say I win edge, he does a damage, but then he has some sort of way to deal a ping damage, and then that could be enough to to get him off the table and prevent the ability to blow up the objective in one shot, and also then get a free dude. But I mean, yeah, he lost the Sandcrawler, so this is kind of the steamroll effect of like that early game. Like the turn 2, just losing 2 guys is so brutal because I've lost such little of my board, and so like my board has grown since the last time that he refreshed. Like the last time he refreshed, he had just a Decimator. That's all he had. Like he had a Decimator, and so the only thing that's changed between now and then is he's thrown a Pilot on the Decimator, and that's it. Like nothing else has changed on his board state, whereas my board state has gotten more dangerous. Like I lost an Ewok, but replaced it with a Kraken, and replaced it with a Rex Chud. Now keep in mind the Rex Chud did get double focus, so it's not like it's doing anything right now, but bodies on the table are bodies on the table, and it's going to refresh eventually. It's going to do stuff, and you don't want your opponent to keep growing while you just keep stagnating, because eventually it's just going to crack you. Like I sent a nudge in to go deal a damage to the top, and it might not seem like a big deal, but getting an objective from 2 damage to 3 damage completely changes how the threshold is for that objective to go away. Like it only takes a guy with 1 blast to go blow it up, or if I get like a land speeder, the land speeder needs no assistance and doesn't care for unopposed. It just by itself can go blow it up. So it just puts him in a tougher spot, and I still threaten the big Kraken bomb to the bottom, so he still has to have some sort of way to deal with that impact that's coming. But I'm pretty sure he has outs at this point. Like we still haven't seen Boba, we still haven't seen Chimera, but him still being on 1 resources or 1 Navy resource is a problem, because he can't have a turn where he drops 2 guys as easily. Like one of his guys is going to have to be a swoop that he puts in if he's going to draw 2 guys at one time, and he's just trying to play the survival game. Like there's not a ton of ways that he has out for this game. Luckily, he doesn't have to deal with the infinite combo. So there is a combo inside of my deck that allows me to get an infinite mill on somebody. That's not something he has to worry about because he doesn't have any characters. So I can't trigger Funeral Pyre as many times as I feel like it. So him being able to duck that is nice, and I don't change the way I change the way I play the deck a little bit based on opponents, but on a macro level, the max cycling is something that I do with this deck anyways, because I want to get to my Rex, I want to get to my Kraken, I want to get to Leia, I want to get to Unfinished Business, I want to get to my Land Speeders. So it's in my best interest to keep playing it that way anyways. But I do run the risk of, like, if I can't infinite kill somebody and I draw myself out of cards, I could just lose. Like that's very much a possibility. I haven't ran into that yet, but I know Jarratt knows that's an option, so it's not like he has to hold out until the dial's 12. Like, it's unlikely that the dial gets to 12. What he really needs to do is he needs to just hold out until I run out of cards in my deck, because I'm drawing cards at such an obscenely fast pace that I could just deck myself even though I have a superior board presence. Alright, so he gets a resource out, he gets Chimera out. Both of those are nice. And he just goes and he's ready to take the Force. And that's when I do the Owen trick, right? I say, okay, Owen's going to sacrifice himself. I'm going to play Unfinished Business. I'm going to bring another Owen. You're going to cancel it. And then now I can have my turn with the knowledge that I can actually play any event that I want to play. And I have another Unfinished Business in hand, so I'm really just hoping to draw a Land Speeder. Like, if I could draw a land speeder, that puts me in a good spot. I also play an undercover there. Undercover, there's a really good case to just get 2 seeds back, but I really want Leia. And the Leia thing might be more of a crutch because I don't have the ability to automatically sacrifice her. But I hadn't drawn any of my You're My Only Hopes yet. So even though I can't use my Funeral Pyre, I know that the chances that I can draw a You're My Only Hope are really, really good. That I can draw one of those with Leia because my deck is so thin. I think at this point, my deck is probably something like 20 cards deep. So there's not a whole lot that can really get in the way of that combo. And if I draw Leia, it's really hard to envision a scenario where I can't also get the ability to double strike with her. So I'm just like, I have to get her. Like, I have to leave the option for a massive bomb on the table to blow this game out of the water. Not that it's already in my favor, but you want to keep everything open. And then from Jarratt's end, Chimera is close to the best guy you can play, because Chimera allows you to kill any one of my attackers, because I have no protect in this deck. He can kill any one of my attackers if he wins edge, and then also lock out another one. So being able to get, like, if I play a Rex or if I play a Land Speeder, he can stomp that guy plus Kraken, presuming that he has some way to deal with the distraction attacks. So I still have Yoda and I still have an Ewok to, force him to block those guys. But he also has Black Market Exchange, so he can free up a defender. I don't think you would ever want to free up a Chimera, sacrifice a Chimera to free up the Decimator, but desperate times call for desperate measures, and much like last turn, he could face a situation where he's just dead to the board if he doesn't. So I get my Land Speeder, and I know that I have an unfinished business in hand. He doesn't know that. He might suspect it because I was willing to burn one to get rid of his his blockade, but I don't think you can 100% assume that, especially considering like how much I've been getting rid of cards. You'd think that would be one of the few cards I'd keep. So who knows? But Land Speeder goes in, and Land Speeder's going in by itself to the middle, and this puts him in a tough spot, because if Land Speeder's going to redirect to the top every single time here, if he lets it go, I just blow it up. Or if he loses edge, I just blow up the top objective. So you're kind of playing with fire if you just let it go. So he chooses to block with just Chimera, as best I can remember. Like, he didn't block with both. He only blocked with Chimera. And then we go to edge. And this edge battle, I don't really care to win, because I kind of want Chimera to kill the Land Speeder. Because if Chimera kills a Land Speeder, I can revive the Land Speeder. And I know I have a twist in hand. So I just want to get rid of good cards. If I can just get rid of his good cards, I'm in a position where I can just win, depending on what he does. And so he throws 6 pips. I twist it out. I also wanted to prevent a stay on target. Like, stay on target would be really bad for me, because he could just go and kill Kraken. And Kraken is my way to just auto win this turn. Or it's one of my ways to auto win. And at this point, I have a Seeds. I remember that. Jarratt doesn't know exactly what's in the deck, so he asked me to flip through it. And I remember it took a while, just because the deck, or the discard, has so many cards in there that, like, you have almost my whole deck in there. So he's really just asking for particular cards. What he wants to see is how many copies of Twist are in there, how many Friendship is Magic are in there, and also he asked in particular, I remember he asked me how many of the Ewok events are in there. So he has enough experience playing against Funeral Pyre that he knows that you can move a token from a unique to an Ewok that's ready, and I have an Ewok that's ready. So that is something he has to consider, especially because Chimera's focused. And so there's the Boba Fett, which, bit of a bummer on my end, but exactly what he needs on his end, because now the board's starting to get closer, right? Kraken's dead, Land Speeder about to be dead because he gets to strike first, and then he gets to tap out Yoda. So he's not going to be, presuming that I didn't have the unfinished business, he's not going to be dead in the water here. But what he does have to do is, if he wants to kill the land speeder, he needs to sacrifice the decimator in order to kill the land speeder. But just given how the board state is, I was in a position where I was hoping that he would kill me, just because it's cool to bring back the land speeder the same turn. But if, let's say, he doesn't kill me, right? Let's say his move is, I'm going to just let the land speeder deal 1 damage to the objective and then go from there. Then the game's just over, because if he doesn't kill me here, I deal 1 damage to the top objective. I would then send Yoda to the top, and I have enough cards to win edge because I had a You're My Only Hope in hand. So I would pretty much auto win edge. The decimator can't stop Yoda, and if he sacks the decimator for a Chimera, Yoda just kills Chimera. So then Yoda pops a top objective, gets his defenders out of the way, and then I revive a land speeder, and land speeder plus the Alliance Infiltrator go to the bottom. I also think if he doesn't sack, I'd probably send Yoda plus an Ewok, just so that way, if he does try to save the black market exchange for the third attack, I can drop 2 extra tokens and just make Chimera unusable as a defender. And since the decimator only has 1 health left, the Kraken Chud, like if I send Kraken Chud plus the land speeder, they would be able to deal 3 damage plus kill the guy and then end the game. So if he doesn't choose to sacrifice in order to kill the land speeder, he just loses the game here. I didn't 100% expect the Boba Fett thing, so I thought that the game was just over on this turn, but that's why you play the game, because you might be able to pull off some weird trick to keep yourself alive that 1 extra turn to just survive. And if you keep surviving long enough, particularly as Dark Side, you can pull off wins that are unexpected, like wins that you wouldn't think you could do, and they feel like you're pulling a rabbit out of your ass. But sometimes people can't close. Like if light side messes up and they don't stack their attacks correctly, and that buys you 2 extra turns, that's 2 extra dial ticks, and maybe you blow up a bunch of objectives or something. And so at this point, Jarratt's still in the tank. He doesn't know that I have an unfinished business. Like, I think he suspects it, but he's just doing the math to see if he just loses, if he doesn't do what he's pretty sure he has to do. And he's unclear, because he won edge. He's unclear if he should just kill the land speeder or not. And he ultimately, comes to his senses. He kills off his own decimator. He murders my murders my guy, and then uses his tactics to get Yoda out of the way. So now I'm on just a Kraken Chud and an Ewok. So the Kraken Chud's going to go blow up the top objective. Ewok ends up swinging with her. I remember I do like a little bit of card draw. Like, I think I use the Vaporators before I declare my attack, just to make sure I don't draw like a Friendship is Magic or something that could maybe change how it goes. But I draw and nothing relevant comes in there. So it's like, all right, these guys go in. I throw away some cards in edge. That blows up. And then I can unfinish a land speeder and do 3 damage to the bottom, putting him 1 damage away from winning. And at this point, this is just like super sad times. Like, he's caught up to the board a little bit. Chimera's nice. He killed off my Kraken. He killed off my land speeder, because even though the land speeder got his damage in via the unfinished business, it's not on the table. So of dudes that I have on the table, there's Yoda, and then there's Chuds. Like, the battlefield engineers don't do anything. The Ewoks don't totally do anything either. The Kraken Chud has a blast, but it's at the point now where he could realistically come back now. It's just he needs a way to untap Chimera, and that's where it's sad times for him, because if that Chimera were untapped, if he didn't have 4 tokens going into his next turn, I think he has like a pretty reasonable chance to get back in the game, because then we end up at pretty close to even boards. But me getting that extra blast and most importantly extra tactics just puts him in a really tough spot. Now he can still use the black market exchange, so it's not like Chimera's 100% locked out, but the ability to say Chimera defends and then I win edge, I kill your guy, tap another dude, then sack one of my guys to have Chimera strike again, so that way Chimera kills another dude and then taps out another guy, and now we're at even board presence. That's basically been taken off the table for him entirely. Like, that's not something that he can really cling on to, and he just has to hope that his next dudes, like the way he's going to have this turn play out, he needs to draw something like a gladiator plus maybe just a gladiator, and you have to block in a way where you can like stop the first attack, lock out another dude, and then hopefully just stand firm. And if you can't, then you sack the gladiator, untap your Chimera, and then Chimera goes and swings at something else. There's no more seeds left in the deck either, so the seeds that I shuffled in earlier, it's been used already. So he knows if he does play any sort of vehicle to be able to untap Chimera, the Chimera doesn't have to worry about being auto-focused like it was last turn. Because if I didn't have a seeds there, I think he's just in a better spot. Because at that point, yeah, he'd only kill the land speeder, but he would be in a position where he could just kill the land speeder and then save the killing for, or the sacrifice of the decimator for another turn. In any case, so I don't really have a board. Like I think I only have a nudge as my defender. Oh no, sorry, not a nudge. I have I committed the battlefield engineer to have 2 pips on the force just to make it a little bit tougher, because I'm 1 damage away from winning. So if he can't take the force, he just loses. And so he blows up the objective. Whatever, like that's not a big deal. It only gets to dial up to 5, I believe. And then he used an Empire Strikes Back to get it up to 6, maybe 7. But like he needed at least 2 more objectives to win the game. And him having 1 less card in hand, it doesn't really help him, you know? Like, but whatever. So what it does do though is like being able to attack, it makes it so that he has a reason to sacrifice a dude he just played. And now Chimera is available for defense, and gives them a reasonable hope to, you know, again, just stay alive. That's all you're trying to do in this stage. But I think at this point, you're almost completely dead to the board. Because, like, you send, like, an Ewok at the top objective, and that's going to force Chimera to block. And he has 2 resources open. So if he does have a Tractor Beam, and let's say I play a Land Speeder, that might open up the door for him again. But, yeah, I just show him my hand. I'm like, you're not getting past that. But Jarratt wanted to play it out a little bit, you know, just say like, hey, let's see what your deck looks like on the final turn. And I'm like, all right, man, if you're like a glutton for punishment, you know, because in my mind this game was kind of over after turn 2. You know, he didn't have all the stuff he wanted right out of the gate, and I got enough of the stuff that I wanted that it was able to be pretty massively on my side. And so at this point I start playing sloppy. Like, I draw into my Leia. I know I have 2 copies of You're My Only Hope in there, so it's like I'm going to be able to double strike. I'm going to draw cards. I'm not going to lose edge. And I'm going to have enough blast too, you know? Like, I have enough tactics to make 2 distraction attacks on the top 2 objectives. There's no way Chimera's going to be able to get through all of it. Like there's just no way. And he's just like, all right, well, whatever. What we mostly do at this point is we just start talking about, like, okay, what do these decks do? Is the light side deck just unfair? You know, because I have both Rex and Yoda in the same deck, and while Rex's cards didn't show up really this game, they are really, really strong. And there is something to be said about like being able to have both Rex's objective and Yoda's objective as ways to refresh dudes is just super feels bad. And then you also have like Funeral Pyre, which he knew Funeral Pyre was coming, which affected his deck choice. Because like I think you would look at his deck and you would say that's probably not the strongest dark side deck you could play. And while that might be right, you need that sort of deck if you're going to try to compete against a deck that you know has Funeral Pyre and has enough blast to be able to back up Funeral Pyre. Because like Funeral Pyre has always been a good control card. And the problem with it has never been the card itself, and it's quite frankly never been the Ewoks themselves either. It's just been that like the whole is less than the sum of the parts with that pod, because you do all these things to like tap down your opponent's board, you're drawing a bunch of cards, you're getting all these tactics, but you're not doing any blast. And if you don't have enough blast to blow up objectives, then it doesn't matter. But like Rex being able to have 3 blasts himself, plus his fate cards and effective stay on target, that's pretty huge. And then you also have the Chud, which refreshes Funeral Pyre. So like Funeral Pyre is really easy with either Leia or Rex's Chud to get 2 triggers in 1 turn. So it's almost like a double bamboozle when it hits, and it's just brutal. Like if you're playing like a deck with heavy characters, there's not much you can do. And as you can see here, he had the tractor beam, and I actually did play a vehicle, but it just wasn't enough. Like I sent Yoda in on that first attack, and we played out an edge battle. I won edge because he threw 3 pips with the what's it called, Slave 1, and I had a supporting fire with both a Rex and a Yoda behind, so I threw a Rex in. It's like, all right, whatever, man. This is a wrap. In any case, so yeah, lucky me, I won the tournament, and I was glad to play light side because that's the side I'm a little more comfortable with. So thank you for watching. This has been an episode of Yoda's Hut, and we'll see if we can put some nice little headers and stuff to make this look a little better. And I'll make sure on my channel I'll put like